we had the material, and then a higher authority says, no, you don't.
Flying saucer or weather balloon? Both Air Force stories couldn't be true. One fact was undisputed. Something had crashed at Roswell. A rancher named Mac Brazel discovered the metallic debris in this isolated rangeland outside of town. The wreckage was strewn over more than half a mile, and Brazel alerted the base, assuming a military plane had crashed. Jesse Marcel Jr. recalls that his father, the intelligence officer at the Roswell Army Airfield, had been dispatched to the debris site to determine what had crashed there.
The night that my dad came home, he was very excited. He woke my mother and myself up and said he wanted to show us something very strange. And as I recall, he said this was parts of a flying saucer. I was 11, almost 12 at the time, and I had seen pieces of an airplane and weather balloons and things like that, but this was not like anything that I'd ever seen before. And the most intriguing portion of the debris that I recall seeing was what appeared to be I-beams. When I looked at this with the light reflecting on it, I noticed what appeared to be some symbols or writing along the inner surface of this I-beam. And the implication was this was something that came from some other planetary system.
Author Kevin Randall researched the Roswell incident and learned more about the debris Major Marcel had collected.
You have something called metal foil, been described by various people as like tin foil or lead foil. You wad it up into a ball, you drop it on the table, it unfolds itself and there's no sign of a crease.
Randall interviewed some people who say they actually handled the mysterious wreckage back in 1947.
It was all wadded up when he dropped it, and when he dropped it on the table and it hit the table, it spread out just like it was water. And so they all started holding it and playing with it, and they were trying to cut it with their knives, and they tried to burn it with their lighters, and they couldn't do any damage to it at all.
There were also rumors of a second crash site with even more stunning discoveries. Frankie Rowe's father said that the fire department was called to the scene. There he had observed nothing less than actual extraterrestrial beings.
They'd gotten a call on what they thought was a plane crash about 30 miles north of Roswell. And when they got out there, it was not an airplane. He said it was a flying saucer that had crashed. And there were little, what he called little people. And he said one of them was still alive. That there were two that were covered up laying on the ground. And he said they had been covered up, it looked like with body bags. And the one that was walking around there didn't appear to be hurt.
Through his research, Kevin Randall has established what he believes happened next.
According to a number of the eyewitnesses, the craft and the bodies were taken to Hangar 84 at the Roswell Army Airfield, where they were held for a period of time before the various flights were initiated and sent out of Roswell.
Randall believes that crates containing the alien bodies and flying saucer wreckage were shipped out of the heavily guarded Hangar 84, never to be seen again. When the Air Force produced one MEGA weather balloon at the Roswell crash debris, many concluded it was part of a cover-up.
In the 50s, there was the belief that the U.S. Air Force had proof of some sort that these were alien spaceships and was covering it up to prevent panic.
There obviously was a cover-up of this accident, because years later my dad said he was actually part of the cover-up because he went along with the weather balloon story.
Indeed, according to Marcel, his father revealed that he had been ordered to pose with wreckage from a weather balloon.
My dad explained to my mother that this was a non-event. Don't even discuss it with your friends. Don't talk about it. I was a true Air Force brat, believed in following the orders, you know. He didn't want me to talk about it, so we did not talk about it.
These people were visited by military authorities. They were told to keep quiet.
Frankie Rowe recalls such a visit from a man in a uniform.
He started getting louder, and he kept saying, "Don't you understand? You did not see anything." And he had a nightstick type of thing with him that was kind of hanging on his belt. And he took that out, and he got very loud, and he started talking, and every time he would make a point, he would hit his hand with the nightstick. So he would say, "You didn't see anything, you were not there." And he said, "If you ever say one word about this the rest of your life, we will split up this family. If that's not enough," he said, "you know, this is a big desert out here. We can take you out in the desert." And he said, "No one will ever find your bodies."
If this disturbing account is true, it can only be described as a death threat, a warning to remain silent about the Roswell incident. What was so vital to protect? In January of 1948, the Air Force would launch an investigation into the escalating flood of UFO reports. Something crashed at Roswell, New Mexico. But whether the object that fell from the sky in July of 1947 originated here on Earth or somewhere in outer space has been hotly debated for more than a half-century. Perhaps it truly was a weather balloon, as the Air Force insists. If so, that would deflate one of the seminal events in the history of UFOs. However, if the object was in fact extraterrestrial, the issue then becomes, what business did it have at Roswell? At the time of the Roswell crash, New Mexico was host to the most advanced military and scientific experiments on the face of the planet. In fact, the Roswell area was the only place in the world where testing of cutting-edge radar, rockets, and nuclear weapons could all be found. Perhaps these lurking UFOs had become a threat to national security. The Air Force quietly began investigating the rash of post-war sightings in January of 1948. This inquiry was codenamed Project Sign, and by October, it would reach a truly stunning conclusion.
Project Sign wrote a final report called The Estimate of the Situation, which concluded that UFOs were interplanetary vehicles. You can imagine that this didn't go over well at the Pentagon. The government could not have the idea of UFOs as interplanetary spacecraft coming out when they've been trying to cover up the Roswell crash.
It went all the way to the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, who said, "I don't find this document particularly persuasive." He batted it back down and fired practically everybody in Project Sign. The people who were left at Project Sign could read the handwriting on the wall. If you said they were extraterrestrial, you lost your job. Your career was over.
After the purge, the inquiry was revamped as Project Grudge, a name that may have suggested a certain skepticism. An Air Force insider actually characterized Project Grudge as the dark ages of UFO investigation. In August of 1951, this V-shaped pattern of objects appeared over Texas and became known as the Lubbock Lights. Grudge said it was a flock of birds reflecting the glow of the city. This film was submitted from Great Falls, Montana in 1950. It depicts bright white dots moving behind the smokestacks of a grain mill. The photographer described